talk about some of the things that I did to help me be successful, because I was successful as an educator in changing student behavior. Okay? So, my first symptoms was when I was in the military, and I always say it goes back further than that, really, because when you come from the projects like I did, you probably experienced some trauma. Probably did. Because I ended up being an individual that wasn't me. I did it because I wanted to survive. I did it because I saw everybody else in the community do it. I did it because basically I just didn't want to be a punk. You know, that was the thing that you would be looked at as. So I ended up being an individual that did not really represent who I was. Okay, and so I think a lot of my trauma started then, you know, because you guys, you know, you would have seen a lot back in those days. You would have seen a lot because I did some things, you know, that I'm not proud of. I did some things that if I told you that I did them, you probably would tell me to get the heck out of here, you know. But it is what it is. I did it. I learned from it, I moved forward, and now I'm helping people to overcome the same thing. Okay, so I had a lot of traumas in my youth, but when I went to the Navy, that's what I ended up doing. I got kicked out of college because my dad found out I was doing cocaine. I got kicked out of college, he sent me home, and I was devastated because I was like any other kid in the project thinking I was going to make it to the NBA. And, you know, if I can't get into college, that's, you know, that dream is already destroyed. And so basically I ended up going to the Navy to get away, you know, because I'm not a person that, you know, I heard a young man in one of our groups the other night, he's very successful too as a young man, 32 years old, has his own business, and he's basically a millionaire. But he just said he don't have, his fear is being known. And he said, I don't want to be known. I want to be somebody that impacts lives. You know, and that's kind of like how I am too. I wanted to be an individual that impacts the lives of other people, but that was not the life that I was living. And so I ended up going to the Navy, and my first assignment was, we went to the Mediterranean. It was a 6-month Mediterranean cruise. We were in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and I got a call over that like 3-way radio thing, 2-way radio thing, because we didn't have cell phones then. That's how old I am. We didn't have cell phones. You just had a 2-way radio, and basically what you did is you said what you had to say, and then you said over. When you say over, that lets the radio operator know that they need to switch it to the other person. That call was my mother telling me that my grandmother had just died. Okay. And, you know, the devastating thing for me is that I didn't know she was sick. You know, so I just get a call saying she died. And it was like, hold on, what she died from? And that's what my mom told me. She had been sick for some months, dealing with some stuff, but she didn't want to tell me and my brother because we were both, he was in the army, you know, over in Germany somewhere. I was in the middle of the Atlantic, so she didn't want to give us that information while we were doing that. But she had to when my grandmother died. And so, like anybody else, I knew that I was going to get a chance to go home and kind of be with my family, comfort my family, you know, send my grandmother who was, you know, grandmothers in my family. My grandmother was like, she was the patriarch, she was the leader, because my mom had us when she was young. And so, because she was so young, my grandmother had to take those motherly duties at, you know, for temporarily. And it was to the fact that we called our grandmother, we called her Mama, and we called our mama by her name. You know, we changed that later on, but that's, you know, that's just what it was. And so they asked her the question. They said, did she take care of Eric? And of course, my mother had too much pride to say that my grandmother did. And she said, no, I took care of my kids. And because she said that, I couldn't go home. I had to stay there on the ship, 350 other guys, because I was on a destroyer. That's how many we had, like 350, 360, somewhere now, guys that lived on the ship. And so I didn't get a chance to go home. And yeah, I was angry. Made me frustrated because one, I didn't know she was sick. Two, I have to deal with this situation right here, on the water. We wasn't on land, we was on the water. And so what I did was I kind of isolated myself because I was angry. And I isolated myself because I knew it wasn't going to take much for me to, hit someone. That's just the bottom line. But there were people that was, thinking they were doing good. They were trying to bust through that force field that I put up and trying to comfort me. And eventually I got tired. And I was still 6'4" at the same time. So, when I hit the person, it caused a little damage. But and they ended up sending me to see a psychiatrist. They diagnosed me with some things, and I was like, no, I'm not going to accept that diagnosis. But when I got out, they told me that I could get a check for it. So I said, yeah, I got it. Yep, I got it. I got it, so 50%, and then I said, I got it some more, 60%, so that's, it is what it is. But that's, that's how I came across being diagnosed. I'm diagnosed major depression, anxiety, attention deficit disorder. And that attention deficit disorder was something that, I could see that because when my teachers would call my mother, they would say, and I could hear them say that Eric he's a good person, but he doesn't pay attention. What's the main, what is one of the main symptoms of somebody that has attention deficit disorder?
Short span.
There are. So you can be hypo or hyper. My grandson here is, he's hyper like me. My other grandson is, he's hypo like me. My other grandson is hyper. So if he was here, I'd have to say, hey man, because he'll be bouncing around, probably talking to all you. But him, he's hypo, so he's like me. He's going to zone out, sometimes. And, just think about if I would have had that diagnosis when I was in high school, I probably wouldn't have struggled as much as I did. So I was diagnosed with those things. And basically, the symptoms for me, because of the family that I came from, we did not see mental health illness as something that was real or serious. We came up in the church, and so really all you had to do was, put some oil on it, sprinkle some water, holy water, and you're healed. Well, it didn't work a lot of times. But that's the way we looked at it. That's exactly the way we looked at it. And so it was not a real thing for us. And so I didn't accept it initially, until they started offering me money. But the impact of the dark days had on my family and those that's closest to me. I remember when I was teaching, like in my 5th year, I had another episode to where I just couldn't focus. I had been a focused, excellent teacher for 5 years, and then all of a sudden I get to this point to where I couldn't, my intentions were to do good, but I would get in the classroom and I would just zone out. And my principal, she knows me, and she comes in and she say, Mr. Wortham, something is wrong. I'm demanding that you take days off and you go see the physician. And that's, again, when they told me that, hold on, you probably have to start taking medicine now. Because they, I never got diagnosed with medications at first, but now, they say you might have to start taking medication. Now, I had a cool doctor, because a lot of doctors just want to give you medication. This guy was like, hey, we're going to try this, and if it doesn't work, we're going to try it for 30 days. If it doesn't work, we'll forget about it. And sure enough, I tried it, 30 days, and I don't have to take mine every day, just at certain moments you can tell it. That's what we teach people with mental health illnesses, to know their trigger. Because normally something happens way before you get into the crisis situation. And it's just a matter of you figuring out what those triggers are. And then once you know what the triggers are, you can start doing things to prevent the crisis situation. And so, that I had to take medication, but I did. I almost lost my job because I just couldn't focus. And it was not because I didn't want to, it was because I couldn't. People just have to realize mental health illnesses are not too different from physical illnesses like cancer. We don't dare tell cancer patients to just get over it. But we will tell somebody with mental health, you need to get it together. You need to be strong. But they're the same thing. One happens in the organ, the other one happens in the body. Okay. And guess what the brain does?
Controls everything.
It controls everything. So if you got some problems there, yep, you're going to have some problems with a lot of other things. Okay? And so that was my dark day situation. Again, accepting that you have a mental health diagnosis, for a lot of people is tough. Especially in the black community, it's a tough thing, because we all came up in those situations where we just believed that the Holy Ghost was going to cure you. Even though a lot of our people didn't get cured, we still kept standing. I had an uncle that, this guy, he had several things that happened. And it's still in the news. Look, we still have the news article. My aunt still has the news article. My uncle, he was addicted to drugs. He locked himself in his own trunk, but he called the police before he did. He said, there's a man in Atlanta on Stewart Avenue that's locked in his trunk. Somebody robbed him. And it was him that called and then locked himself in the trunk. And my family's response to that is, oh, he's just trying to get attention. Well, a few years after that, we found my auntie, his wife, found him hanging from a tree. Yeah. See, just think, if we would have took the things, because that was not the only sign. He had a lot of signs. And we just kept saying, he just wanted attention. Okay? And we didn't try to get him help, because we prayed over him. The Holy Spirit was going to heal him. We put holy water on him. We did all of those things, man. We stayed at the church. I remember one time we stayed at the church all night long, running around church, for God to take whatever was going on with my uncle away from him. And for 2 days he was good. But then stuff started over there. Okay? But he died. But I think he could have been saved had we taken mental health seriously. Okay? And I thank God that I have the wife that I do, that she was in the background saying, hey, something's going wrong. I can see it too. The boss see it and I see it. So she wouldn't let up on it. So, and the stigma, that's what it is. It's a stigma, because, we just don't look at it like we do other conditions. This is the bottom line. That's what NUMMI is designed to do, to help people to take it more seriously. Okay? Now, Okay, now, this is what I want to share with you. One of the things that I had to do, because again, my students were highly aggressive. They would turn over tables, chairs. Some of them had hit teachers. And let me tell you about ABD students, or just special education. It's not called special education anymore. It's called exceptional student education. But let me tell you something about how the law works with them. There are teachers that have been physically punched or whatever, and the kid only got 1 or 2 days of suspension. They didn't get put out of school like the teacher was hoping. And the reason being is because when they're diagnosed with something like EBD and a teacher triggers them, okay, it's actually the teacher's fault. Whether we believe it or not, if a teacher gets in a student's face and say, "You're going to pick that paper up right now." Trust me, I've seen it a lot. And I'll say, "Whoa, no, no, no." Because they're probably going to run into some problems. And again, those students only can be suspended 10 days for the whole year. 10 days for the whole year.
Does the teacher have access to know what triggers these kids?
We can. I did. Takes work. That's why I said I knew I was always proactive, so I knew all of my kids' triggers, and I was paying attention to them. So I prevented a lot of stuff from happening. But a lot of teachers are not really trying to learn new methods. You know, a lot of them are stuck in that old authoritative way. And when you do that, it's not going to work with this group.
So these were special attention kids that you all was teaching, or they was in the regular classroom too?
My students were diagnosed with EBD, emotional behavior disorder. So yes, they have a mental health issue. Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm just sharing this with you because a lot of people don't know that. They can only be suspended 10 days. But you know why the principals love me? Is because if you can get somebody to control that classroom, because a lot of administrators, they spend a lot of their time in that classroom because a lot can happen if you don't have any structure in it. You know, so I prevented my students from having to go see the principal, and they love me for that because I dealt with everything in-house. Okay, because I found strategies to help them to work through those situations. Okay. Now, did I have a few kids that did some things? Yes. And I'm going to tell you, one kid, he had got in some trouble, right? And I'm going to send him home for a couple of days. And basically what he tells me is he says, "Coach Wortham, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do it."